In this video, we're going to be discussing how to take a fraction and turn it to a decimal, and a decimal and turning it into a percentage. So take a moment, pause, write in all these words, and then we're going to discuss what they mean and some examples for them. So the dividend is the number that is actually being divided. So in this example over here, the 28 is the dividend. And then the divisor, the number outside of the division house, the 2 is the divisor. The quotient is the answer. So let's see if we can find the quotient. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 times 1 is 2. Subtract, I get 0. Bring down the 8. 2 goes into 8 4 times. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract, I get 0. My quotient for that problem is 14. So now let's talk about the fractions. The numerator is the number that's above the fraction line. The denominator is the number that is below the fraction line. And in division, the numerator is the dividend and the denominator is the divisor. So when you set up this problem, the numerator is going to go inside of the division house and the denominator goes outside. So 2 goes into 4 2 times, which is 4. Subtract, I get 0. So my quotient in this problem is 2. So let's practice setting up those division houses. So for the first one, 3 is going to go inside, 20 goes outside. Top dog in the house is how we say it, is how we remember it. So if you need to write a note, top dog in the house. Whoop whoop. So 20 cannot go into 3, and this is where our decimal division is going to come back into play. So I'm going to add a decimal, a 0. Because 20 can't go into 3, you can put a 0 here. 20 goes into 30 one time, which is 20. Subtract. 30 minus 20 is 10. Drop another 0. 20 goes into 100 5 times, which is 100. Subtract, I get 0. So here's where we're reviewing back with our decimal division. There's your quotient. The next one, top dog in the house. So 14 goes inside, 50 is outside. 15 cannot go into 14, or 50 cannot go into 14, so 0, decimal, decimal, add a 0. 15 goes into 140 2 times, which is 100. Subtract 0, 4, and then this cancels to be 0, so it's just 40. Drop a 0. 50 goes into 400 8 times, which is 400. Subtract, and I get 0. So I get 0.28. Remember the last one, top dog in the house. 16, 25 is outside. 25 can't go into 16. A decimal and a 0. 25 goes into 160 6 times. Oops, that's not 160, it's 150. $150, subtract, I get 10, drop another 0. 25 goes into 100 4 times, which is 100. I get 0. Quotient. All right, so what I want you to try to do is we've been reviewing division, we've been reviewing decimal division. The only thing that we're adding now is the top dog in the house. So when you set them up, I'll set up the first one for you. Top dog, so the 4 goes in the house. I would like for you to solve 1, 2, and 3. Unpause the video when you're ready to check your work. Okay, so here are your answers for number 1 and number 3. I left number 2 blank because I want to chat about it for a second. So we have top dog in the house. 50 cannot go into 3, so I add a 0, decimal and a 0. 50 cannot go into 30, so I have to add another 0 and another 0 down below. So don't forget that second 0 right here. And then 50 goes into 300 6 times perfectly. So I'm left with 0.06 for that one. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about how to convert fractions into decimals. So it says, if necessary, split the whole number from the fraction. So I'm going to take this 2 and I'm going to split it from the fraction. So now I know it's going to be 2 point something because I need to figure out what is this fraction here. Use long division to divide the numerator by the denominator. And if necessary, you're going to reunite at the end the whole number with the new fraction. So let's talk about what does that mean. So I pulled the 2 out because I know if there's a whole number in the fraction, there's going to be a whole number in the decimal. Now I'm going to take this fraction and I'm going to do the division. 1 divided by 4, top dog in the house. Do the division, I get 0.25. Then I'm going to take that whole number and bring it back down. So the final answer for this is going to be 2.25 as the final answer. So all I did was I did the division with the fraction, and then I took the whole number and I put it right over where the 0 is. So instead of 0.25, there's a whole number of 2. 2.25. Let's do some practice. So for number 1, we're doing top dog in the house. So 3 goes inside, 20 goes outside. 20 can't go into 3, decimal 0, 0. 20 goes into 30 one time, which is 20. Subtract, I get 10. Bring down the 0. 20 goes into 100 5 times, which is 100. Subtract, I get 0. So that one was just like the ones that we did on the other page. Now, this is where it comes into play the directions I was talking about before. I'm going to take the 3, I'm going to split it from the rest of the problem. So it's 3 point, because it has a whole number of 3. Now I'm going to take the fraction and do the division. Top dog in the house. 5 can't go into 2. 0, 0, decimal 0. 5 goes into 20 4 times perfectly. I get 0. Now I'm going to take this decimal piece here and I'm going to bring both pieces together and I get 3.4 because the 0 is going to get x'd out and put the 3 in the place. So the 3 gets split, the fraction gets divided, the 3 goes in where the 0 is in the answer here, and the 0.4 stays. Okay. Do 3, 4, and 5 on your own. Unpause the video when you're ready to check them. So here are your answers for 3, 4, and 5. Let me do one more example of that whole number 1. So let me do number 6 with you. So I'm going to split the 7 from the fraction. So it's going to be 7 point as your whole number. I'm going to do division with the fraction. 1 divided by 2. 2 can't go into 1, but 2 can go into 10 5 times. I get 0. Now I'm going to bring the pieces back together. 7 point, but instead of the 0, I'm just going to put the 5 right behind it. So it's 7.5. So go ahead and try 7 and 8 on your own. See if you can get the answers for those. And then here are your answers for number 7 and number 8. If you're struggling with the ones with the whole numbers, make sure you reach out and let your teacher know so that we can go over that with you. Okay, pause the video for me. I want you to do number 9, 10, and 11. And here are your answers for 9, 10, and 11. Now I want to chat about number 10 real fast. If you do the division, you get 0.7. But if you remember your place value, you can see that 70 hundredths, the zeros in the hundredths place, that matches, because remember a little cheater trick, that matches our answer that we have up top because we really don't need this 0. So if you can remember your place value for your tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, you're covered for a lot of these fraction problems. All right, now let's talk about the easier of the two skills that we're doing today, which is converting decimals into percentages. So it's very simple. You find the decimal point, and then you're going to move the decimal 2 places. Oops, wrong 2. To the right. And what you're doing essentially is you're multiplying the number times 100 because percents are out of 100. So we're taking the number, multiplying it by 100 to make it a part of 100. Simple as that. So if we have 9, if we multiply 9 times 100, we're going to get 900%. Another way to think about it is if the decimal point is here, because the whole number has a decimal point in the back, I'm going to move it 2 places and fill in the gaps with 2 zeros. So I get 900%. I can do the same thing here because multiplying by 100 is the same thing as moving the decimal places 2 to the right. Start at where the decimal point is. Don't draw it into the back. Start at where it is. Move it 2. Fill in a 0 where you need to. So this one is equal to 1,350%. Okay. So let's do one more, maybe let's do 2 more together. So I'm going to look at number 1. I'm going to move the decimal point from where it's at. Don't rewrite it somewhere if it's already there. Move it 2 to the right. 1, 2. Fill in the 0. I no longer need the 0 up front, so you can cross it out. So I'm left with 20%. And let's do number 2 together. Move it 2 to the right, especially if it's written there already. 1, 2. My new percent is going to be 428.28%. If you're struggling with that skill, raise your hand, let your teacher know, or come see your teacher so that they can help you. I want you to do 3 through 9. Unpause the video when you're ready to check them. All right, and here are your answers for all of those. Now be careful with ones like number 6. Number 6, you can't cross out that 0 in the front because the decimal point falls between the 0 and the 6. So I still need that leading 0 to show that it's still a decimal percentage. Because it's still a percent because it has a percent sign with it. It's not just a decimal, it's now a percent. And then remember ones like number 8, you can get rid of it because there's a 70 in front of the decimal point. All right, so throughout this unit, you're going to see this fancy table. And we're going to ask you to complete it frequently because it gives you a lot of practice. So what you're going to do, and this is on your homework too, you're going to start with the fraction. You're going to convert the fraction to a decimal and then turn that decimal into a percentage. Now, I understand there's not a lot of room here in the space where you're going to be doing your work for the decimal. So if you want to turn your paper on the side and write your work like this, that's fine. I'm going to write it vertically just to make it a little bit easier so you can watch the video. But if you need to turn your paper sideways so that you have some more working space, go ahead and do that. So let me do the first one with you, and then you can do the other 2, and that can kind of help walk you through the process because they can be confusing. So I need to turn 1/25 into a decimal. So 1 goes inside, 25 goes outside. Top dog in the house. 25 can't go into 1. 25 can't go into 10. 25 goes into 100 4 times. Exactly. So my decimal is 0.04. Then I need to turn that into a percent. Move it 2 places over. I get 4% because the zeros in the front go away because the decimal point's now in the back. Okay. So you're just taking the fraction, turning it to a decimal, turning it to a percent. Now, if I had to draw it, I would draw a box of 25. So I would do a 5 by 5 little box. And then you'd only color one of them if I had to draw it. Same thing with number 2. If I had to draw it, I'd draw a piece that had 5 in it. And I'd color 2 of them. So that's going to show up on your homework with the drawing piece. Now, ones like number 3 where you have to draw the 4 holes, draw 4 whole pieces, totally colored, and then draw another piece, cut it into 10, and then only shade in 6. So 4 holes and 6/10. So I want you to pause here, do the decimal and the percent for number 2, and the decimal and percent for number 3. And then here are your answers for number 2 and number 3. So I got the decimal 0.4, and then I moved it over 2 places, added that 0 in there to fill in the space, and so I got 40%. I did the same thing here, moved my decimal point over 2 places, filled it in with the 0, so I had 460%. Don't forget about that whole 4 right here that you have to drag over from the fraction to fill in that blank. If you have any questions, please make sure you reach out to your teacher. We're happy to go over it with you if you need us to review it with you before you take your Socrative.